Just giving a couple of minutes for people to join us. Okay, I think I will start. Hello and welcome to the Nursing and Midwifery in Crisis webinar. It's a Nursing Now Challenge webinar done in partnership with Jaya Mental Health and Japaigo. My name is John Marcelo. I am a mental health nurse as well as the founder of Jaya Mental Health and a Nursing Now Challenges champion. And I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you to today's online gathering. Now, this is the second of a series of webinars that on one hand examine the role of nurses and midwives in crisis, in situations of crisis around the world, and on the other hand, encourages discussions about what kind of support is available for nurses and midwives with a particular focus on mental health and well-being. And today's webinar, we are focusing on war and conflict. So there's three webinars that we are going to do. We had a launch webinar. This one is about war and conflict. We'll have another one on natural disasters and a third one on health crisis. So today it's about war and conflict. And I am also absolutely delighted to, as always, have a great group of panelists joining us. So our keynote speaker is Philippe Balgatti, who is the chief nurse of the International Committee of the Red Cross. We will hear experiences from nurses and midwives who are practicing currently in areas where there is war and conflict. We have Mohamed Asif Usaneir from the Aga Khan University and board member of the Nurses Association of Afghanistan. We also have Zara Mitsaye, who is the former president of the Afghan Midwives Association. And although both speakers are from Afghanistan, this does not mean that this webinar is exclusively about the experiences of nurses and midwives working in Afghanistan. At present, and unfortunately, as we know, there are lots of different conflicts, deadly conflicts taking place around the world, from Syria to Yemen to Ethiopia. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time, and today we will only have a small sample, a small snapshot from our colleagues, in this case from Afghanistan, of what's happening in that country and of people who are literally on the front line of conflict. Following this, I will invite all panelists to a discussion. And in addition to Filippo and Zara and Asif, I will also invite Pandora Hatman, Chief Nursing and Midwifery Officer of Japaigo, to join us. Japaigo is an NGO for international health that is associated with the Johns Hopkins University in the US. And Pandora has extensive experience in midwifery education and consultancy work in a wide variety of countries. So delighted to have Pandora as well with us, joining us in that discussion. After the panel discussion, we will be introduced to Health Action Training, who will tell us about some examples of training that can be offered to nurses and midwives working in areas of conflict. And this will be done by Pat Deeney, who is the CEO of Health Action Training, and who I understand also has lots of experience of working abroad and in areas of where conflict happens, and also Matt Jennings, Head of Development and Delivery from HAT. You can find out through our chat box how to sign to the trainings that Health Action Training will be presenting to us. And as always, please use the Q&A box, the chat box, to throw your questions, to any thoughts, any stories that you want to share with us, either in this webinar or in future webinars. Please do send us your comments, because we really want to hear from you. We can't see everyone's faces, people who are at home, but we really want to hear your voices. So please do use the Q&A box and the chat box for anything you want to share with us. We will then close this webinar with a short exercise also facilitated by Health Action Training. Really look forward to that as well. Now, every Nursing Now Challenge webinar starts in a slightly different way. And this time we've invited Katie Dixon, who is an occupational therapist with over 2 decades experience of working in healthcare and specifically in mental health care, to kickstart this session. Katie also provides natural ways to support regulation of the nervous system using a polyvagal lens. She writes poetry, and so we invited Katie to read us a poem that emerged during her own healing from trauma. So Katie, very warm welcome to you. And we are ready and looking forward to hear your poem. So over to you, Katie.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction, and also for the invitation to join you all here this afternoon, as it is in London. It is actually an honour to be here. So my poem is called The Tree and Me. The tree and me love to feel free, my heart on my face for all to see, branches outstretched shouting, look at me. It's so much fun to be carefree. My roots deep down in the ground below. With strong foundations, I reach out and grow. The tree and me just want to be free, yet always we are connected, the wide world and me, to earth, tree, others, to myself within. Through this, my journey of safety does begin. Many seasons to embrace, their gifts to unfold. I will face many challenges as I grow old. But with the sound of sweet lullabies whistling in the breeze, I go about my business with awe and ease. And as water and sunshine nourish my soul, I learn a dance with life to keep me whole. The tree and me love to feel free, but sometimes the lightning, it frightens me. It strikes at my bark and it twists my insides. I'm hurt and I'm scared, but there's nowhere to hide. My heart has started to thump and pound. I cannot seem to hear another sound. My focus is gone, except this need to survive. My body has gone into automatic drive. Only anxiety and anger are left inside. It's like I'm on a runaway train ride. I'm distracted, I'm jumpy, I'm breathing fast too. Does any of this feel familiar to you? Sometimes it's hard to know what to do. But the tree and me just want to be free, so I find a way to come back to me. I press pause, slow things right down, anchor my roots way down in the ground, and then I peek inside for what I need and breathe deep to my tummy until at last I am freed. The tree and me love to feel free, but sometimes the wind, it won't let me be. It pushes me this way, it pulls me that. It tugs at my leaves, bending my twigs right back. My body takes over, my brain's out of sight. Only 2 options available, run or fight. All I can hear is the blood in my veins. Nothing even looks the same. Unfamiliar faces all around, voices now just distorted sound. I cannot find a safe connection. All that is left is self-protection. I'm frightened, worried, it's chaos inside. How did I get back on this runaway train ride? Does any of this feel familiar to you? Sometimes it's hard to know what to do. But the tree and me just want to be free, so I find a way to come back to me. I rise with its bluster, yet anchor my roots. This strengthens my trunk, but gives flight to my shoots. I can move around more flexibly, but never stray too far from me. I practice letting go of what has been said. Write down how I feel so it doesn't live in my head. The tree and me love to feel free, but sometimes the darkness, it overwhelms me. I surrender to stillness. I stand here and freeze. No sound of sweet lullabies whistling in the breeze. I can't feel my body. Where is my head? I don't even remember the last thing that I said. Please, can I come back up in my bed? What is the point of all this? I feel heavy, lost in the abyss. I'm no use here, there is no hope. Such feelings of shame I cannot cope. And with the world spinning in slow motion, I sit here alone in endless procrastination. I feel so small, not connected at all. My heart is quiet, my breath shallow too. Does any of this feel familiar to you? Sometimes it's hard to know what to do. But the tree and me just want to be free, so I find a way to come back to me. I search for starlight in every direction, sense out safe trees for kindness and connection. Gentle rock, invite some energy back. Movement will get me back on track. Find some laughter, engage in play. These help to keep the darkness at bay. I also think it's worth a mention that we have at our fingertips life's greatest invention, a hug, a squidge, a snuggle, a squeeze, although always ask permission from your fellow trees. And if no other passes in the breeze, then you hold yourself tightly until you feel a release. This is one of the best things you can do if the opportunity is available to you. Ask the universe for that loving cuddle, guaranteed to soothe many a muddle. And the great thing is, it doesn't just help you, but it can feel pretty good for the other too. The tree and me love to feel free, but sometimes with all that life can be, there's a whisper of danger, but no threat in front of me. I may start to feel I want to run or fight, or I may just want to curl up and hide. I have all those feelings I did earlier describe, but everything is happening deep, deep inside, and it's like it's not me who gets to decide. Does any of this feel familiar to you? Sometimes it's hard to know what to do. But the tree and me just want to be free, so I find a way to come back to me. I learn about what it means to be and how my body responds to take care of me. I thank it from the bottom of my heart. In the race of life, it's given me a head start. I take note of how my insides feel and what about me this might reveal, where I am in a moment in time, and then out from this place I can gently climb. My breath and movement support me along, so I do not get stuck in fight, flight, or shut down for too long. I make friends with my biological brilliance. This will help to scaffold a healthy resilience. The tree and me love to feel free, my heart on my face for all to see. Branches outstretched, shouting, "Look at me." It's so much fun to be carefree. My roots deep down in the ground below. With strong foundations, I reach out and grow. The tree and me just want to be free, yet always we are connected, the wide world and me, to earth, tree, others, to myself within. Through this, my journey of safety does begin. Many seasons to embrace, their gifts to unfold. I will face many challenges as I grow old. But with the sound of sweet lullabies whistling in the breeze, I go about my business with awe and ease. And as water and sunshine nourish my soul, I dance in life and celebrate I am whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you for sharing your poem with us. It's not the first time I hear you reading this poem, and I absolutely love it. And I think it touches so many aspects of our own human nature. And I suspect that many of us in the panel, in the audience, can relate to the poem that or reminds us of other people we support in our role as nurses and midwives. So thank you very much for sharing the poem. I hope you can stay for a little bit longer with us and continue to take part in this webinar.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, I'm delighted to give the floor to our first guest and keynote speaker, Philippe Balgatti, Chief Nurse from the ICRC. Filippo, I believe that the topic from conversations that we had in the past that we are covering today is very dear to you, and above all that you have lots of experience in this field of nursing caring in conflicted, affected areas. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, thank you very much for inviting me. I think that everyone knows or everyone heard at least once in their life ICRC or the Red Cross. That is something that is known. We have branches in all the countries. and what they do all over the world. And of course, the ICRC itself has a long experience, is 150 plus years in conflict zones, mostly, supporting the victims of conflicts. And this is give us really a very big backpack, let's say, background to develop and to improve also the services that we provide to people in conflict area. Because what is the difference we face in these places is that the people themselves who are deployed to support are in the same situation. So they are affected together with the civilian population. They can be hurted, they can be injured. And I think that's one of the topic that was also taken in a discussion of the recent International Council of Nursing Congress that happened on the 3rd of November, and probably some of you have also participated in it. The main topic was exactly about healthcare in danger and the protection of the healthcare personnel, especially in these conflict areas. As it was introduced by you, Joao, we will have experience from people from Afghanistan, but I personally experienced a situation where healthcare personnel and structures and ambulances have been attacked without thinking about the consequences and without thinking that we are in this situation together with the affected people. So this is something that it changed a bit also the mindset for me as an Italian nurse, being used to work in a certain environment and be shifted to a totally different environment where you might have a good quality also of equipment, because it's not that in some places you don't have the equipment. We are working maybe with organizations, with huge organizations that allow also to bring in equipment to rehabilitate structures. But when you are there and you are part of the conflict, you are in danger yourself. You have first to take care of yourself, your mental health, and this is also one of the thematic that it will be also talked about in this webinar. And I think that the most scary thing is that if you cannot cope and you cannot have a sort of resilience yourself, it is very difficult then to be able to deliver for others the healthcare. I have been under threat personally during one of my mission, and it was very, I was really near to die because I had a gun pointed at me. But in that moment, everything got sort of blind, because the priority as a nurse, as a health personnel, is more on what are you doing. In that moment, you don't think, you react really with your heart, with what you really want to do for the people. And you have really to keep like a cold blood to respond also to the situation. I think that this impacted me a lot. It's not that it's something that stayed in my mind for several months. And sometimes even when I recall this, it's painful. But at the same time, I can see that this situation helped me also to grow and to develop a sort of strength to go on. And in this situation of violence, really the healthcare personnel is really to be care. And I think that one of the things that we can do as healthcare personnel, not just as nurses and midwives, but of course we are the one that are mostly present with the relatives, with the patient themselves. So it's to speak out, really to raise this very important topic of protection of healthcare, because we are the one. If something happened to us as healthcare personnel, who will take care afterwards? I think that there are several videos from the initiative that it's called Healthcare in Danger. You can find on a website, is joined between the ICRC and the International Council of Nurses. It's called healthcareindanger.org. And it has some videos also that shows the impact of the violence against healthcare in danger, health personnel, and how to reflect on that. And I think this is very, very a very important thing to consider when we are talking about healthcare in armed conflict zones. I don't know if I will leave maybe some space during the panel discussion if someone has any questions, but I think that really the real difference is to care about ourselves when we are in this conflict situation, and to support each other. In terms of mental health, I can give an example. For example, we have a program called Help the Helpers. That is a sort of peer-based approach where we are helping each other among colleagues. Because not always you have the possibility to have a sort of psychological support with a professional, with a professionist in these areas. More and more, and I think that in the last 2 years, we are almost 2 years with this COVID pandemic, more organizations are developing and implementing the mental health and psychological support for the people who are deployed in certain areas, because of course this is something that is not coming to our mind from the beginning. Of course, when you have a weapon wounded, you think about saving the limbs, saving the life, but after that there is also a mental health part that need to be rebuilt, that need to be restored, a mental health, and also that part is missing in most of these countries where the health system is collapsed because of the war, and maybe healthcare professionals are not supported also in the mental health side.
Philippe, thank you very much. Actually, I've got lots of thank yous to tell you. Thank you for talking about the Help the Helpers program. Really interesting to find out more about that. So you mentioned the web page is the healthcareindanger.org, a resource definitely to have a look at. Thank you as well for sharing your personal story and what happened to you. That was very powerful. So thank you for disclosing that and talking about it here on this forum. Philippe, before we move to the next guest, I just wanted to ask you, are there any statistics in terms of how many nurses, how many healthcare staff actually are currently working in areas where there is an armed conflict and this sort of danger? Do you, either from the ICRC or kind of globally, what's the percentage of the workforce that might be working in this sort of circumstances?
Well, yeah, I can speak about the ICRC, and we have more than 100 expatriates, so mobile people, and more than 6,000 health personnel all over the world. Mm-hmm. And most of them are in these countries that you also mentioned before: Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Afghanistan, Pakistan, mm-hmm. South Sudan, where the conflicts are still quite heavy.
Quite active. And then to those numbers, I suppose that we need to add the very important numbers, which are actually the actual local staff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Practicing in hospitals and clinics and the communities all over these countries. And that's why it's so exciting to have to also have Mohammed Asif and Zara here with us today. Thank you very much, Philippe. We'll probably touch some of those subjects in our panel discussion. I'll move on to Zara, if that's okay. Hello, Zara. Really good to have you with us today. Zara, you are the former president of the Midwives Association of Afghanistan, and you mentioned in your introduction that you just moved recently to the US. So really keen to hear about your story and your experience of being the former president and a midwife in Afghanistan. Over to you.
Thank you very much. My name is Zahra Mirzai. I am former president of Afghan Midwife Association and also one of the people who was actively involved in establishment of Afghanistan Midwifery and Nursing Council, and also I was a board member of it until I left my country. I worked for 14 years in Afghanistan health system, especially in maternal and child health, and I work with national and international organizations such as JAPIGO, Swedish Committee for Afghanistan, Aga Khan Health Services. And today I'm here to share just some small part of my experience with you all. Next slide, please. Decades of war and violence have significantly impacted the well-being of Afghanistan is challenged with ending preventable maternal and child deaths. Despite concentrated effort to increase number of midwives, increase access to reproductive health services, as well as efforts to improve quality of care during the last 20 years. For example, only 18% of women receive ANC4 contacts. But the other big and important concern, there is always security situation. Unfortunately, many civilians have been killed, and sadly, healthcare and humanitarian workers are part of these attacks, especially during the most recent political changes, which cause immigration of health human resource out of the country, closing of health facility due to insecurity, lack of medicine and supplies to health facility, and also being the worst country in the world for women itself describe how the situation was in Afghanistan and how the worse it will be now. Next slide, please. That's just two photos from the last year attack to maternity hospital. And it shows that many civilians have been killed, and sadly, healthcare and humanitarian workers are not separate from such attacks, and even the newborn and women in the labor. Next slide, please. Coming back to the midwifery profession, we all know very well that educated and regulated midwives have an essential role to play in preparing for and providing sexual reproductive health services due to their unique knowledge and skills and position as frontline provider, and due to their geographic and social proximity to the community they serve. Beside the conflict, fragile health system, insecurity, the Afghanistan government with the donor support have invested a lot in midwifery workforce during the last 2 decades, and midwives are the main provider of maternity care in Afghanistan. But since Taliban came to Afghanistan, the support ended. Many educated human workforce left the country, and food shortage, lack of access to the health services due to security concern. Due to security concern and also lack of access to health services, and increasing the concern of people, the women and midwives would feel fair to go to health facility, but still midwives remain as main supporter of community in this situation. Next slide, please. AMA, as the biggest technical body of midwifery in Afghanistan, always stand with midwives, especially during the hard times such as COVID pandemic, and then during the current crisis of changing governments. Being non-political, non-profit, and membership-based body give us power to handle all the difficulty, although as a woman-led organization, it always put us in the more risk. AMA was one of the rare organizations that not only do not stop its activity during this crisis, but also we expand them after changing the regime in Afghanistan to decrease the effect of these changes on Afghan women, children, and family. For example, establishment of new midwifery-led maternity care center as the Victoria win for those who lost their hope after gunman attack to the maternity hospital. Furthermore, we established 10 new midwife-led units in the community level to provide MCH services for them. Next slide, please. After the rapid and unexpected fast changing of the regime, AMA conducted an online assessment to see how these changes affected midwifery and MCH services in the country. As it was online and considering the internet problem in country after changing regime, only 1,116 midwives out of 3,500 AMA members respond to our online assessment. And the data shows that 90% of respondents were breadwinner of their family. 85% of them still are employee of a health facility. 84% of health facility are still open, and the rest of them either are closed or the midwives do not want to respond to our question. But unfortunately, only 19% of midwives received their salary during the last 3 months. And 58% of them say they want to continue their job even if they do not receive their salary for longer time. However, feeling fear for coming to health facility, being forced for having a male accompany, facing security problem, losing hope, and willing to leave the country were the other major finding of this assessment. Next slide, please. As you can see in the chart, more than half % of health facility are facing with shortage of a very essential and basic medicine and supplies, such as oxytocin, IV fluid, magnesium sulfate, or running water, winterization, and electricity, which is very, very important and basic things to say, yes, we are running a health facility. In this case, I think we can say, in fact, if the data shows 48% of health facility is open, but officially they are, it is only officially open. But in fact, when we are thinking about the quality, we cannot say all of these health facilities are open, because how we can have a health facility open without these basic material and supplies. Next slide, please. And how AMA are facing and handle this problem and issue. Yes, I think the current situation and how we are trying to take urgent action to handle, to make the situation stable, but still it is an unstable situation, unbalanced situation. AMA conducted a rapid assessment to see how is the situation. We try to continue providing MCH services as much as we can, and we have the resource even in the community level, because at this time it would be difficult for women to come to health facility movement. Sorry, back to the previous slide. Negotiation with the current authority, for example, AMA try to find a way to be in the negotiation with the current Ministry of Public Health to continue supports or other support such as mentorship support for midwives and Babies Matrix program, and being a voice itself. We want to be a voice of midwives and women in Afghanistan. It is all we can do, but the big challenges in front of us, for example, shortage of supplies and medicine, we don't have any influence and resource to address this problem, gender-related barrier and poor working environment for midwives, closing of health facility, and end of support for supportive project for health area, and worsening security situation. These all are something that we could not address soon. Next slide, please. These slides are related to mentorship support. Just I want to a little bit talk more about mentorship, as we say that yes, mentorship support is one part of AMA support to midwives in this situation. Why we suggest mentorship during this crisis? Because it is the best way when during the war situation, conflict situation, first midwives as a woman cannot move and go to outside of health facility for to be informed from new updates, to take new training, capacity building program. But AMA still continue to provide mentorship support during, through online or in-person visit, because we have some trained mentors inside the community. They can move and go to health facility to provide on-site learning session for midwives. Next slide, please. And lack of essential drug and equipment in health facility, increasing unemployment rate due to suspension of most health facility fund, no support of home delivery for women, not salary, even for some of the midwives for more than 10 months, no winterization in health facility, either in big cities or rural area. As well as being told not to leave home without a male relative escorting them in Kabul. And all of these are examples of current situation in Afghanistan. But I want to say a lot has been achieved. Establishment of MLMCC or Midwifery Center, Midwifery-led units as a dynamic journey toward improving quality of care. And Midwife-led maternity care center will empower midwives to improve health outcomes. Afghan midwives demonstrate incredible resilience, although they faced many challenges. But this is fragile and insecure, and ensuring safety is an urgent priority and needs for them. With education, association, and regulation now are in place in our country, we need to ensure midwives not lose their achievement during the last 2 decades. AMA call for urgent attention of the world to the current tragic situation of Afghanistan, investment for more midwife-led care center and units in the community, mentorship support for midwives, and support for women and midwifery leadership. Next slide, please. And at the end of my presentation, just a small portion of Rumi poet who says, yesterday I was clever, so I want to change the world. Today I am wise, and I am changing myself. In this poem make a lot of sense for us as midwives. We want to change the world through our profession, through midwifery, to become to bring a better world for women and children. And we start from ourselves, because as when we are the best midwives and we provide the best quality of our services, we are sure we can change the world. Next slide, please. And lastly, in the year of midwives and nurses, the essential contribution that nurses and midwives makes every day in every country is recognized. In Afghanistan, midwives play a vital role in maternal and child improvement due to its acceptance and unique connection to the community, even during the crisis and war. Therefore, support and investment in midwifery can be the best strategy to save life in conflict setting. Thank you very much for your attention.
Zara, thank you so much for sharing this with us. So many questions, and some of these questions I will leave them for the panel discussion, because I think they coincide with so many of the things that we want to talk as well with the other panelists. But I mean, I was just so impressed with, you know, we know that the challenges are absolutely huge, but the amount of work that has been done over the past 2 decades, like you said, and you are, you know, living proof that change can happen despite this, you know, the obstacles being so huge. So congratulations for everything that you, Amma, and your colleagues have been doing. I cannot think of any kind of more adversities than the ones that you are facing. So it's absolutely inspiring. You are true heroes. And I know that sometimes we use these words so loosely and in such a trivial way, but I personally think you really are. So look forward to continuing this conversation in our panel discussion. Let's continue in Afghanistan. Asif, really good that you're joining us as well. You kind of representing the nursing profession in Afghanistan in this debate. So really, really keen to hear from you about your experiences and your colleagues of being nurses and working as nurses in Afghanistan. So over to you and welcome.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I am Asif Hussainiar, and I am nursing instructor at Aga Khan University Academic Projects, and I am board member in Afghanistan Nurse Association and also board member in Afghanistan Nurses and Midwives Council. As Ms. Zara Mirzai stated, that we, together with these leaders, midwifery leaders, we established the midwifery in nursing council in Afghanistan. The nursing situation in nursing profession in Afghanistan is like it began in 2020, 2002. Next. Next. Yeah, as you know, Afghanistan, this is the profile of Afghanistan. You know that Afghanistan is landlocked and it's in South Asia and Central Asia with population of 33 to 38 millions, and it has 34 provinces, and the capital is Kabul. Next, please. Next. Based on WHO survey that they have done it in 2019, Afghanistan has around 6,000 nurses in the country, but there was an estimated that by 2030 there will be around 30,000 nurses in the country, because there is a huge number of nursing in school in the country, and they will be produce more diploma nurses in the country. They are healthcare workforce, in most of them working in all over the country in BPHS, in EPHS, in the hospital, in the community health centers. Next, please. Next. Next, please.
Can you see the slides, Asif? Asif, are you still with us? Oh, I think we've lost Asif.
Sorry,
You're there, Asif. There you are. There you are. Great. Can you see the slides?
Lost my connection.
No problem. Can you see the slide?
Yes,
It says
yeah, previous slide. Yes, previous slide.
This one. Okay.
Yeah, in the country we have one regulatory body, which is the Afghanistan Nurses and Midwives Council. And there is another Department of Nursing and Midwifery in Ministry of Public Health. Unfortunately, we don't have any chief nurses in the country. And there is one professional association, which is the Afghanistan Nurses Association, ANA. And in higher education, we have, unfortunately, we have only one public sector, which is which offer the BSN program. And it is a public sector, and one private sector, which is offering post-diploma, post-RN-BSN program. In diploma level, we have 9 the public Institute of Health Sciences, which is offering diploma program, and 12 community health nursing education program. But they are it was decided that this year that these CHNE program will be closed, and we have 85 nursing school of in private sector, which is very huge, but even their qualities are also under question. And please next. In Afghanistan Nurse Association, we have the Afghanistan Nurse Association established in 2006 and revitalized in 2016, and it's registered with Ministry of Justice, and it has some office barriers, and we have 9 board members, and our membership is 1,200 active nurses throughout the country, and it has some mandates to strengthen the encourage and professionally develop nurses and enhance their public condition, establish a sense of amicability among nurses, and other all other activities is happening in ANA. I will come to challenges. Maybe you can recall it. Next, please. Next. Next. Next, please. Yes. The most like the important challenge of
Mohammed. Asif.
Nurses, unavailabilities of higher education for nurses.
Asif, I think we've lost him again. I was going to ask him to leave and join us. Let's just give a few seconds. Asif? No?
sorry.
Asif, no problem at all. I was
we
actually
don't
going to ask you.
have electricity here, and also yeah, we have a lot of problem with this connectivity. Yeah,
not a problem at all, Asif. Not a problem
and,
at all. Please go on.
Unavailability of nursing education service in the hospitals, no any training center in the hospital, and warn them with the work, did them time by time. We don't have career ladder in the hospital. The nurse who is coming coming to the hospital, they will be forever in that position, and there is no any career ladder for them. Missing of leadership in MOPH International NGO. Currently, we don't have any chief nurse in the government, and also in the international organization like JPAGO, like WHO, in other, there is no nurses to work for nurses in the country. Even not experted nurses, or even not the national nurses, are not working in this international organization to work for nurses in the country. Private sector nursing institute quality is another challenge for us, that there is no any proper accreditation system for nursing institutes in the environment, like shift, long duties. The nurses are coming in the morning and stay for 24 hours. They're on duties. Ratios too much, like one nurse is looking after 20 patients, 30 patients in the hospitals. And the safety, there is no any safety, and the nurses are brain drain. Yes.
Asif, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. It's very difficult to listen, to understand what you're saying, because very likely because of the connectivity issues that you were saying. Can I suggest one thing? Do you mind, and I know this is not ideal, just going through the slides very quickly? We can see the slides, and then maybe join us in the panel discussion. Is that okay? Because it's very difficult to understand because of the internet connection. Is that all right?
Okay.
So maybe I'll ask Andrea just to go through the slides and maybe allow us to read the slides, and maybe just stop for a few seconds, and then we'll try to join you again in the panel discussion. Is that all right?
Yeah. Okay. It's okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Asif. Thank you very much. Andrea, is that possible? Maybe if you just stop. So I think everybody heard about the challenges that Asif mentioned, and I think these continues, mentioning the challenges, international community leaving, loss of job. Asif spoke about the patient to nurses ratio. Uncertainty, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen, the future of Afghanistan politically, economically, socially. Recommendations, again, like the AMA that Sarah spoke about, advocacy, really important, providing humanitarian aid to nurses, so helping your colleagues, capacity building, creating the nursing specialties that are missing in the country, replacing the current diploma program with higher education, so more professional development opportunities for nurses, and leadership in nursing. Asif, I'm so sorry. I hope that I'm summarizing in the right way what you were hoping to share with us. So let's move on to thank you. No, we thank you, Asif. We thank you. And let's hope that the connection is good for you to join us now in the panel discussion, you know, these things happen, you know, how online technology, talking from various different countries happens all the time. So apologies for that to everyone at home.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can get everyone together again. So usually after having heard about these experiences of different people, in this case of our colleagues in Afghanistan, we invite panelists to join me on a discussion on the theme that we are covering on each session. So I have, like I said throughout the webinar, as everybody's been talking, I have lots of questions for you all. And I'm guessing that probably people at home also do. But maybe, and partly because time is limited, I would like to ask you panelists the following. On one hand, how does working in a conflict-affected area has an impact on your mental health and the well-being, your mental health, your well-being, and the mental well-being of your colleagues? And what support exists currently to protect the well-being of nurses and midwives working in conflict areas? And perhaps, if you don't mind, Pandora, I'll start with you. Like I said in the introduction, I know you have a lot of experience of working in various different nursing scenarios. If I'm not mistaken, you're both a midwife and a nurse. So it would be really good to hear your thoughts on these questions. How does working in these conflict areas impact one's mental health and well-being? And what kind of support exists out there for nurses and midwives?
Thanks for the opportunity. And yes, lots of experience in this. Most recently working with Syrian nurses and midwives and actually doing the first transition of nurses to convert them to full scope midwives while in the midst of active conflict. So their mental health, wow. There's two components of this, because one component is literally just about the day-to-day survival, you know, and helping people to get through literally what's in front of them. Some of the biggest challenges I also think can be in looking at tomorrow, you know, and dealing with the heightened rates of sort of depressive, particularly as we looked at more of the conflicts that are becoming protracted. How do we get to thinking about tomorrow when, you know, today is in front? So what I have found to be very, very successful is lots of peer-to-peer engagement and sort of peer-to-peer networking and support. Many, many times I can think of the nurses and midwives all over, and the Syrian in particular saying to me, oh, even if we do not survive, you will tell our story. It is okay. You must tell our words. So I think that it's a two-component part for those of us who are out and in and going backwards and forwards, that there is a role to be the story bringer while providing that day-to-day kind of check-in and support. I'm also a large fan as well of using some of the technology, low-tech sort of things, the hands-on skills that look at some of the cognitive behavioral therapies, because those are quite easily taught. You know, I'm thinking of things like the emotional freedom techniques that were shown to have great success even in our post-traumatic stress disorder for our veterans, for example. So for me, it's combining sort of the ongoing people-to-people connection as important, some of these cognitive behavioral therapies, and also being present and being there and providing that venue to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the unattractive as well, that really do load. So it's not just one thing. It has to be a basket of approaches for mental health that take into consideration the fact of sitting in front of a 2-hour counseling and, you know, traditional therapy setting, I haven't necessarily found as to be useful.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Pandora. And Filippo, I saw you nodding to a lot of what Pandora was saying. Do you want to add anything that Pandora was saying? And you talked about your own personal experiences. So
absolutely, and I think that more and more in these places, in this conflict area, you really feel the team spirit. You really need to be part of the team and understand really how every one of your peers are dealing with the stress. Everyone might not have your same coping mechanism or timing. I remember there was a colleague that whenever we were coming home from the hospital after maybe 10 hours of work or 12 hours work. We were eating all together, and he was going in his tent. We were sleeping in tents and disappearing, and we were sort of judging him not being social or not participating. But at the end, we discovered that after work, he has to go in his tent, lay down in a bed, put some music, and this was his way to release the stress. And it's the same for me whenever I come home from the hospital. Even after 14 hours of work, I need to cook. I'm an Italian nurse, so I have to cook, and this is my stress release. And it's something that maybe other people, they don't understand, but we really need to listen each other, to leave the others and see how each one of the team is coping. And if someone needs to stay alone, is because he has his own way. Then of course we have to listen each other and understand when this loneliness or with this attitude is going towards bad, because then this is also that some people, when they cannot cope with the stress, they can go in burnout. But this is at the later stage. We need really to understand how is the spirit of the team and how we can be supportive.
Very important things. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing lots of different things. So leadership is very important, and how you bring a team together, very important as well to think about. And Pandora, you've listed a series of techniques, of ways of supporting people, but at the same time, as you mentioned now, Philippe, is also about recognizing each person's individuality and how each one of you deals with the impact of a stressful day or a stressful and traumatic experience. And I suppose it's about finding a balance, isn't it? When you know how to intervene, how creating that supportive team spirit, but never, obliterating the individuality of each one of us. Zaira, so thank you very much, Filippo. Zaira and Asif, you said absolutely tremendous things on your presentations, and now, Pandora, you mentioned something as well that you've heard of some of your colleagues saying, if we do not survive, share our words. I think it was something similar that you said, that you've heard of that from colleagues of yours. And Zaira and Asif, how do you find hope? Where do you see the light at the end of the tunnel? I think for me personally, that's something that I'm really keen to know and to understand, when in the midst of so many challenges, so many difficulties, how do you find hope?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Asif, yes.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Yes, I hear, see what is the situation of nurses and midwives in the country. Most of them did not receive salaries from last 5 or 6 months. See, if somebody who is the breadwinner of their family, and they have just around $200 per month salary, and they did not receive from last 5 or 6 months, how they should survive, how will be their well-being, how will be their mental health. I think first of all to ICRC that yesterday when I was in one of the biggest hospital in the Kabul Jamhuriyat Hospital, they receiving 1 month of their salaries last month, which the ICRC distributed to them. They was so happy for just 1 month salary. I can say for the time being, Afghanistan nurses and midwives and all healthcare workers needs their salaries. The World Bank should release the health fund for them. In the ICRC, in other international organizations should advocate for them to release the health fund and distribute their salaries. On the other hand, the currency is like dropping day by day. today the exchange rate was around 130 Afghanis, $1. Like it is almost from last 3 months. 3 months it was 75, and now it is 130. In the salary they are receiving is 10,000 or 15,000, which is around $100. And another on the other hand, the winter is coming. In people, the foods are expensive. This is, I think, in the first thing we should think on this salaries, humanitarian aids, and thirdly, we should think on the well-being and mental health of nurses and midwives.
Thank you, Asif. In continue to what Asif says, I want to add this. For us as AMA, as an advocacy body for midwifery, being a source of hope was what we help us to not lose our hope, because we have to be hopeful for midwives, and we understand why we are in front of them, and we said, yes, as your advocacy body, we are here with you. So it is helpful for midwives. I remember after 3 days when Taliban came, all of the midwives lose their hope. And we start talking in the different forums. We have some Viber group, WhatsApp group, Facebook, and we start to say, hey, midwives, how's your situation? We are here. We are hearing to see what is your problem. We will still advocacy for your problem. We try to address your challenge. So midwives at the first was very surprised. They said, oh, still AMA survived. Oh, you're here. We are happy to hear about you. And I think it was our strength. Oh, thousands of midwives see if we are survived, then they will be hopeful, and they are survived. So we have to be survived. We have to be hopeful because we are source of others' hope. And as you can see in my slide, I say more than 80% of midwives says we are, 58% of midwives says we are ready to work even more than 3 months. We did not receive salary, and we want to work for more, because the midwives understand that they are important. We reach out to them and says, how are you? How is the situation going on in your place? So they understand, yes, they are thinking about us. We will continue working. And finally, after months or years, we will receive the recognition we need. So it is a combination of human being and the resiliency of midwives and their commitment to their profession, and both, I think being a woman itself, because they always are strong and connected with their community, and they are ready to survive themselves for the community, and also the recognition and to see, yes, someone is here to ask about us. It is not important who is, it is AMA, it is government, it is an organization from out of Afghanistan who get reached to us and ask about our situation. But it is very important for midwives to understand the people see them, the other world and the other people care about them and think about them. So it gives them more strength to continue their work. Thank you.
Thank you, Zara, and thank you, Asif. I mean, two very, very important, powerful messages. Zara, you were talking about being almost like a beam of light to other people and giving them hope, which is extraordinary when, you know, the challenges are so huge that you take that responsibility, but like you were saying, you also know that the impact is huge, and there's almost an element of surprise and joy from your colleagues when they know, like you just said now, that there's somebody out there asking for them and bringing them together. That's incredible. But then Asif, you also spoke about the practicalities, the logistical side of day-to-day life, of not receiving money, not being paid salaries, not having funds to buy food, etc., etc., etc. What are the answers for those challenges? I don't know, but they are huge. They're huge. So both really strong, important messages that reflect a very difficult situation. This is a really interesting discussion, and I just wished we had more time. Definitely something for us to consider on our next webinars. And also, something for us all together to think about: how do we move forward, and how do we find ways to engage and to support with nurses and midwives working in crisis situations like the ones that have just been described to us now. Unfortunately, we're going to have to move to our next guests. But again, let's just keep what we're talking about in our minds and think about, because that's the purpose of these webinars, I have to say. It's to think about practical, tangible ideas, projects that we can put together to support people like Zaira and Asif and all their colleagues. So let's just kind of park that thought for a little while and move now to hear from our next two guests. We briefly talked about finding practical, tangible ways of helping our colleagues to both prepare for and deal with the challenges of working in regions where there's war and armed conflict. So we have Pat Deeney, who has a lot of experience as well of working in areas of conflict, and Matt Jennings from Health Action Training with us today. And they will tell us about practical examples of training programs that are on offer to nurses and midwives working in areas of conflict. So Pat, Matt, really looking forward to hearing about these training options. So over to you guys.
Thank you, John. We're delighted and very privileged to be invited to this webinar today. And really, I think, Matt, it strikes me that I think Health Action Training, we can create a space for people to actually grow and just express their feelings. There's some ideas that are really critical in this situation. Like I trained as a nurse in Northern Ireland, and that was during the conflict. And my experiences then took me to other parts of the world, and I went on to continue to promote this whole idea of supporting nurses and who were experiencing crisis. But some of the things that people have talked about and almost the most essential thing is your colleagues working with your team, but also watchful waiting, not rushing in, as Pandora said, rushing in with big ideas about counselling and all these things. That is not, in fact, evidence tells us it's not correct. But you need to be watchful waiting. You need to be aware, and the principles of psychological first aid are still applicable to your colleagues and to the clients and the community that you're working with. And like I always had 3 words, which was always to protect people and to direct them and also to connect with them. And those 3 words always stay with me quite a lot because there was many people, in my early years in nursing that in Northern Ireland that actually lost their lives in the conflict, but they lost family and friends, and they were coming to work and still doing their job, having lost family and friends and members of the community. Like my own village, for example, was bombed. We lost 13 people in it, well, 11 actually, but probably 30 to 40 people impacted by it. So these things stayed with us for decades. And even though we have peace now, it's still a conflict recovering. It's a recovery, and that recovery is just as important. And it needs nurses and midwives to lead, just as Zara had pointed out. We bring so much to the table in our understanding of people and human beings, both in their physical needs in relation to their mental health needs and their social needs, and just getting the community functioning, because I'm sure we know that the definition of a disaster really is around the community being overwhelmed, the community not functioning. And that's that idea of community and making sure the community, fostering community spirit, fostering a community, be it, I suppose a team is a little community as well, but a hospital is a community, a team of nurses, teams of doctors, it's all communities. So Matt, like you came to Northern Ireland, you know how you are.
Yeah, I came from Australia where I was trained as an actor. So I've come from a drama background, but I've been based in Northern Ireland for the last 21, 22 years. And I did a lot of work using community drama as a way of bringing communities who'd been at war with each other together, as well as within, what they call single identity work, helping people to sort of overcome or at least manage or share stories about some of their experiences, and also not just necessarily sharing stories, because some of that, making people tell their story of the trauma work can be useful, but sometimes it can be re-traumatizing and counterproductive. Bringing people together to just have fun and also to explore their imagination and their creativity as well as their experience. And I was reading Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, recently, and he was talking about how working with people from war veterans through to people who'd grown up with developmental challenges, neglected and abused children, that with managing or processing the kind of traumas that are held in your body. I mean, one of the things about the way we work is you're not just working at a kind of cognitive cerebral level, you're moving your body. We do things that are related to yoga and breathing exercises and mindfulness, etc. We move together, but also that I think Bessel van der Kolk's phrase I thought was great for how community or participation in theatre and drama works. He called it symbolic transformation through communal action. And I think that's the core element. One of the things that happens to us in a traumatized community or as a traumatized individual is this feeling of helplessness. And it's important to be able to get agency. And I know there's some resistance to the term resilience, which I understand, but there is the possibility of post-traumatic growth, and there is the necessity for reminding ourselves of agency. So with a drama sort of based approach, we, one, share our stories, we, two, explore our imaginations and have fun together. And this is about working with groups of nurses together. But then we also explore agency. So setting up a scenario based on your own experiences, like could be as simple as how do you persuade your way through a checkpoint in a war zone like Northern Ireland was, and I imagine Afghanistan is today. Sometimes you have to get past armed guards who might be suspicious. How do you ask somebody for money if you need it? How do you reassure somebody who's in a great deal of pain? How do you communicate with your colleagues the fact that you need some time off? Simple, everyday, practical situations that you're dealing with on a daily basis, that you can then use a drama-based approach to rehearse trying different tactics or strategies or different approaches to them. And then not only that, from your peers, exchange your experiences and your ideas. So if a group of nurses who have had experience of similar situations can not only talk about what they've done, but then also rehearse it in the safe space of an applied drama workshop. So, I mean, in a way, some of what we do is similar to resilience based on mindfulness, because we start by centering ourselves, because we're based in the framework of person-centered nursing. And we like to say it's hard to be person-centered unless you're a centered person. So we start by centering ourselves, and then we do exercises based on paying attention to each other and what's happening around us and what's happening with other people. And then we work on our intentions towards them. What do we want to happen? What do we do to make that happen? What do they want to happen? Which is crucial. What are they doing to tell us what they want to happen? Because often, as we know, if we ask somebody, how are you? They'll say, I'm fine. And what they really mean is, I'm in desperate pain and I really need your help, but I'm just too scared or too polite to ask. So how can we tell from nonverbal communications that when somebody says they're fine, they don't mean it? and that they were, and so simple, clear objectives and identifying them at the non-verbal and verbal level. And we've had fantastic results working with nurses here in Northern Ireland over the last couple of years. I mean, as I say, I understand resilience is a controversial term, but we've been evaluating some of our courses using this Connor-Davidson Resilience Index, as well as a person-centered practice index. And in all of the courses, we've run 6 35-hour courses so far of the graduate certificate in health action training, which, by the way, is Royal College of Nursing accredited.
There's some of the...
Oh, look, here we've got some figures. Happy days. Thanks, Pat. I've battered on to... Yeah, so 50. This is the first course we did, with 35-hour training course with a bunch of nurses that we got together through Public Health Agency funding, and they were working specifically in telephone triage, because increasingly here in Northern Ireland under the coronavirus pandemic, you're having to communicate on the phone, which is quite challenging because you don't have your non-verbal cues, so it has to be entirely a voice and breathing understanding. And
but the thing that sticks out for me there is actually, and it's very important actually for this audience, is the really, the perception that people improved in their leadership. And for me, the leadership, it's also like self-leadership as well, but it's finding the voice. And a lot of voice exercises we do actually associated with the mindfulness and being centered and so forth. The voice is absolutely critical.
Yeah.
I recall actually, in the early days in Northern Ireland, nursing really didn't have a voice. We really kept very quiet because we were influenced so much by the conflict that we didn't want to discuss things. And we never talked a lot. So that is probably the most important.
Yeah.
I see there's the satisfaction level is quite high with our course.
Yeah. I mean, in relation to voice, actually quite a lot of international research in applied and community drama, and in my own experience, one of the things you find when you're in a conflict zone is that people have a lot of shoulder and neck tension, which sort of physically holding their voice back, not as against not just not being heard or listened to. So providing a listening space within which people can, contribute whatever they want in terms of their ideas, but also, as Pat was saying, exercises on the breathing and on the voice that help with your kind of mental resilience, as well as actually literally freeing your voice from being trapped in your body. As you see there, fantastic results. All we've done, as I said, 4 more graduate certificates in Northern Ireland, similar to that first one, all of which have had the similar kind of scores of between 15 to 20% improvement in resilience and improvement in person-centered skills and understanding. But primarily the main thing is having nurses say to us, I was burning out, I was about to quit. And there's been quite a few who have said that this was my last throw of the dice to see whether I could cope with staying in the profession anymore. And being able to learn and share in this way with my colleagues and with these approaches has completely rejuvenated me. So also in terms of leadership, we're running Train the Trainers programs, and we've just finished our sort of first cohort of them. And that included 3 nurses who said when we first started working with them, they were going to give up. In fact, one of them had already left the profession, and now they've stayed on for the rest of the year they want to become a trainer themselves, a health action trainer. So for instance, internationally, we've just been very lucky. We've received some funding to work for the next 3 years with Nursing Now, providing international training for nurses around the world via this kind of digital technology via Zoom from the UK. And we want to train trainers in different countries so that they can pass on the method and the skills within their communities.
A massive bet. Just picking up on that point that you made now, because unfortunately the time isn't on our side. We shared the link of how people can actually apply for the courses, how they can, the form that they need to fill in. Can you just tell us in a snapshot what kind of courses would be available and the kind of the duration, so that the audience knows what they'd be looking at?
Thank you, Joanne. You have a 2-day course or a 12-hour course that could be offered, 2 single days, and that's with those programs ready to run. And one is on COVID, focusing on COVID, but it could be any crisis situation, and focuses on recovery as well, and involves
skills.
Recovery skills. And then our our main course really is a graduate certificate, which is actually a 6-day course that presents all the ideas in relation to health action training and performance skills, person-centeredness, self-care, resilience, all the elements that we feel that actually that the individual needs to actually be a leader in this particular situation. And then, of course, as Matt has said, we offer then train the trainer courses as well for people that have already completed the graduate certificate. So we have a suite of courses available.
I think in the first instance, Pat, aren't we offering 3 of the 12-hour courses and 1 of the 35-hour courses in the first 6 months to see?
I think so, yeah. It'll really depend on, what the uptake is and what the level of interest is. But, just to reiterate, I think in this particular context, I would be very confident that we could give people the space and time to actually work through what they need to actually make them more confident, self-confident, and to survive in their particular context, but then to become people that could influence their community and really add to overall community resilience as well as to actually individual resilience.
And Zhao as well, we can tailor-make everything we do according to whatever issues are emerging within a particular community of nurses, because like the approaches we use, the actor training and the drama approaches we use are transferable to whatever issue it is you're dealing with. So whether it's incivility in the workplace, like people in the United States, or whether it's like difficulty with, being isolated and only being able to communicate on the phone, or whether it's trying to handle where do we find clean water, or how do we protect our women from the soldiers, et cetera, or our men or children, whatever. So whatever the situation is, we use the same techniques to explore and rehearse outcomes, because the ideas for how we solve these problems come from the people who are dealing with them, much like you're already doing with these peer-to-peer practical approaches. So we're just giving a framework where you can make explicit what's going on, what the problems are, and what ideas and experiences we can draw on to have a better outcome.
Sure, brilliant. Matt and Pat, thank you very, very much. One tiny but really important detail as well, which is absolutely great, is that these courses are for free. And I think that has been mentioned in the chat box. So really hope that lots of people have a look at them and tap into this wonderful set of resources that health action training has developed. We have just a few minutes, and there's a couple of questions here. I think we're going to choose one for the whole panel. This is a question that asks, if you could choose one thing that could be done to improve the lives and experiences of nurses and midwives working in conflict zones, what would that be? And maybe, can I ask Zaira and Azif to think of an answer for this one? So if you could choose one thing that could be done to improve lives of you and your colleagues in Afghanistan or any other area of conflict, what would that be?
It would be from our side or the others? To clear question for myself. Okay, if from my side, as I will continue my work as I'm currently working with them to show that we can stand against every difficulty and we are strong enough to solve our problem. But if it's from the world side, I think at this time, Afghanistan really needs support of international organization and donor and supporter. Health is not political. It's about the human being. And I think it is not a fair decision that we stop supporting health issue in Afghanistan just because of changing the political issue. So I really want to ask everyone who have any authority to continue their support for health area, because it is just about human being. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zara. Asif, anything you want to add to what Zara shared?
Yes, I agree with Ms. Zara. We are still committed to work for the humanity, for our people, for our nation. But we need the support of international organization in the word support in this situation, like humanitarian needs, AIDS, and also the.
I think we've lost Asif. It's 3:30 UK time. I always feel like the bad guy because I'm always stopping you, every single one of you, from, you know, I've got so many questions and I always, you know, I have to pass the other one, and it's so frustrating. So to the panelists, do apologize me. An absolute pleasure to have you all here. And I cannot stress more that for us, these webinars really are the beginning of a conversation, or we're picking up in conversations that we know that you are all already having. And I suppose that we're just trying to bring us all together and see whether we can continue the conversation and come up with tangible things that we can do to help each other, and above all to create this network that is of real help to our colleagues working in areas of war and conflict. We have another webinar probably in January. The next one, like I mentioned at the beginning, is going to be on natural disasters, but it doesn't mean that this topic is going to be forgotten, not at all. So what we're hoping is to continue this conversation. Do keep an eye on the Nursing Now social media for dates and times and who's going to do what. And let's keep in touch. Let's continue this conversation. Really look forward to hear also the feedback of people that will participate in the health action training courses. Really keen to hear about Amma's work as well, and what happens in Afghanistan from the ICRC, and the amazing work that you do as well all over the world. So let's all keep in touch.
Sorry to interrupt, Xiao.
Yes.
I know we were going to do a couple of minutes of interactivity, and I know we've run out of time, but I could give one practical tip that will take 10 seconds.
Go on.
Okay.
Let's go.
If you're in any danger, right? So you're captured or you're being held in context or somebody's threatening you, right? Or in any context, right? This is a little tip I picked up, basically, and do it with me. I just want you to stifle a half yawn, right? Just, you've got to start yawn. You just try and stifle, try to hide it. Just try to hide, almost a little yawn. Here's Zara, do it with me here. Just like, well, you don't feel like a little bit of yawn, just want to hide it, okay? And you want to look at somebody on the screen and sort of say, you know, say in your head, oh, I'm sorry. That, in a situation where you're being captured or somebody's threatening you, one, it relaxes your body. Two, it presents you as being relatively harmless. I mean, I found this when I was actually sort of under threat by some people with guns at one point. I was just going, oh, sorry. And once I started to sort of have to suppress a yawn, both I relaxed, but also subconsciously they relaxed. And then they started to see me as far less harmless. And from what was a really aggressive confrontation with weapons, it turned to a situation of going, oh, sorry, you know, see you later. Have a good night. So one tiny little tip. If somebody's pointing a gun at you, just say, oh, sorry. Just go on.
A brilliant tip. Matt, thank you so much for sharing it, and you were brilliant with time as well. So thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Really look forward to seeing you all again. Again, do send us your questions. Do look into the resources that were shared on the chat box. Write as well to the Nursing Now if you have any questions, and look forward to catching up and seeing you all very soon. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank
you. Good to see you, Philippe. Bye.
Bye.
Go after yourselves.